Welcome. I'm Rielly Karsh.
I'm Tovah Copan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. We are, as always, so very happy to have you with us today. I'm trying out new intros. We'll see. We'll get to one eventually that works. Anyway, we are, as I said, very happy to have you all with us today, and we are continuing our conversation on busyness and self-worth and how all of that interacts and works together. Before we dive into today's topic, I am, as I always do, going to welcome my fantastical and wonderful and all the great words, super awesome. I don't know. I'm going to come up with more adjectives, but welcome to the show. Tovah, how are you today? What's happening? Talk to me.
I am good. It is summer. It is still July when we're recording this, but
That's true. Just barely.
By a hair. By a smidge. I don't know. I don't understand summer. It feels like it's so fast. And this whole thing about the country, part of the country starting summer break May 4th and going back to school a week ago, and then us going back to school after Labor Day. It just makes me feel like I don't know that we should be getting ready to go back to school, but we still have 5 weeks of summer break. It's very confusing. My son did baseball for the last 4 or 5 weeks, and so it didn't really feel like school stopped because we had stuff during the week, and you would swim, so you'd kind of a similar
much swimming
experience. So now it's the dog days of summer are just starting. But people are going back to school. I don't understand. So that's where I'm at. That's I don't know where that is.
You're in some sort of, Bermuda Triangle of summer.
But really I think that's
what's happening.
That's kind of the joy of summer, because let's be honest, once we get back from summer, there's no Bermuda Triangles, right? It's Labor Day, events, holidays,
yes.
events, and then March.
Right. And it just powers through. And, I'm in a very similar position because school does not feel like it ended for us because, as you just said, my kid had swimming, and it was every day, and it was fun, and it was great. It's so good for her, and I love her team and her friends on her team, and it's all of that stuff is fantastic. But man, we were driving everywhere, and there was a lot of scheduling and a lot of busyness going on.
Well,
and not necessarily the bad busyness where I'm oh, I don't like this. But just a lot of busyness where I'm okay, I've got to schedule everything, and I've got to remember to do this, and I've got to pack stuff, and I've got to get my work done by this time, and just the usual busyness, and not the summer okay, I can breathe and take a break.
I was lucky. So yes, my kids had I had a calendar that was very complicated.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of information on it of ice cream days, and this is the day that the kids had this, more than school, if I'm going to be particularly honest.
That's how I felt. Yeah.
And today's the last day, and now we have different types of things in August, but there was 5 weeks of camp, and my kids love our town camp, and so I love it because they love it, right? Mm-hmm. But my one son was doing this special learning thing, then we called it first camp, and then he had second camp, and there was carpooling involved, and then my other son was doing this swim thing that wasn't really swim team, but it was practice swim team to see if he liked it. And so I made this calendar that was color coded, and it had this is the day the kids need this swim clothes, this kid needs swim clothes, and this kid needs ice cream money,
Right.
because God forbid we can just send the ice cream money, at the beginning of the year,
Right. And to
right?
just
Or
be
the
there.
summer. I mean, that was like at daycare when they started letting us just do that one time. Like we could Venmo like the ice cream money at the beginning of the summer. I was like, this is the best thing ever. But no, like the most cash I have in my life is ice cream during the summer.
Right.
And it was just it was a lot.
Yeah.
There's
I
towels
I
everywhere.
have to say my son's camp has it down to a
Yeah.
science. They are amazing. I am grateful every morning for that camp. I get text messages that tell me what to do. He's got a card I can put money on. He goes to the snacks.
See, I like
Like
I
it is,
that's
they open the door, take him out of the car. It is amazing. They're
I
amazing.
also like I feel like lunch, like as a parent, what I want to be able to not do is make my kids lunch.
Yes.
Like, I
Yes.
don't
I
understand
mean, we
why
are
they,
so far off topic right now. We're just having
I,
a whole like
I
discussion
don't
about parenting
understand.
woes, but yes.
I don't understand why they need it every day and every day.
I
And
know.
like, it should be balanced a little bit, maybe.
They can't
And,
just eat goldfish.
and it
It's
requires
brutal.
like cooling
Oh,
and like every single day.
and all
And
of them need it, not just one
you
of
know
them.
what? Why it doesn't feel like summer? Because I still have to pack their lunch.
I know.
And yesterday I emailed my two of my sons are going to a Taekwondo camp next week. And they had indicated that for COVID in the past, they had not done like where you could buy lunches from them, but they had indicated that might be an option this summer. So I had emailed and said, hey, is lunch on? And I was like, I will throw any amount of money. Like, we will eat ramen for dinner next week to make this work with our grocery budget. I do
Yeah,
not care.
right.
And she was like, no, no lunch option. I was like,
Oh
but
no.
mommy wants summer break too. And she only gets it if she doesn't have to make lunches every day.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so I don't know where that fits in other than I don't like making lunches.
It fits in the busyness conversation, right? Because in and perhaps not in the topic at hand for today, but in this conversation of like mental load and carrying and physical load, because I
Like,
mean it's a physical activity, but like in carrying the burden of remembering to do all the things all the time that comes
yeah.
along with just being
Like
alive.
not packing lunches, and this is going to sound like what it sounds like, and I'm sorry, and obviously millions of people dying is not worth me not packing lunches, so let's just set that aside and assume that I know that. But not packing lunches was a silver lining of the pandemic,
Mm,
and I stand by that. And obviously, I would have much rather packed lunches for those 2 years than had my kids missed it, the schooling and had people not died and not had
obviously,
all of
right?
the economic fallout. Like,
Yes.
obviously, I would have much rather packed lunches. But if we're looking for silver linings, and we don't really like silver linings here, but I'm
Mm-mm.
standing by the fact, because here's the difference. Um, if my kids are going to have sandwiches and a chip and chips at home, right? First of all, they don't eat sandwiches at home, but let's pretend they do. I just make the sandwiches. I don't need to figure out a container to put them in. And I can just open up a bag of chips and put them in a bowl. Or they can open up a bag of chips and put them in a bowl. If I have to serve chips at lunch or some sort of chip type salty snack, I have to put it in a container of some kind, or I have to buy it already coming in the container, which is apparently like a $4 upcharge. And like, there's just so many other levels. So I stand by that. It was
Yeah.
like the one gift the pandemic gave us,
Yeah.
and quality time with our families, of course,
You know,
that
details.
too. But today is interesting. So today is an interesting topic. I'm gonna circle us back,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
or circle us there for the first time.
And the get us there. Let's
I'm
just
gonna get us there. So one thing, and this was something I feel like this was like a late add to our outline when we were fleshing out this topic of busyness, and this might have even been something that we like saw pop up on Instagram. And I feel like somebody said something or a quote that we saw as we were like fleshing out this season, and it was like, yes, we need to talk about this topic or this conversation of why we set goals. And it's interesting because there is like very little writing on this, at least that I could find. There is some interesting writing on achievement culture, and I definitely want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Um, and let's have some disclaimers at the beginning. We love goal setting. We think goal setting is fantastic. We are big fans of goal setting. In fact, I was like so concerned about making sure that like you knew that and you like felt our love for goal setting that I even included a section in our outline that you, the listener or YouTube watcher, will not even see, where I like talked about like what a SMART goal is. Like,
Right.
we're not going to go over what a SMART goal is in this. That's not what this is about. But I included
Right.
it in the outline just so
Just
you
in
know,
case.
like, yeah, just in case. Like, we love goal setting. We think goal setting is super important, but we have concerns. And one of our big concerns is that how goal setting reacts with busyness and how goal setting connects to that feeling of worth. And I think that, you know, we talked about this before we laid out the season, but I think it has been confirmed with every single interview that we've had, where we have talked to women who have talked about how they have had to essentially reestablish their sense of self-worth when they've like broken away from their like achievement culture or like this sense of achievement, or how am I describing it, this upbringing or this pressure, whether it's been family, because sometimes it's been their family and sometimes it's been society, but this like focus on goals, getting the good grades, getting into the good college, like hitting these certain mile markers. And they have, as they've gotten older, realized that, oh wait, maybe that's not what life is all about. um but it is really hard to let go of that urge to like keep setting these goals.
It is. And I think, the more we talk to people other than ourselves, and the more we research this topic of busyness and self worth, and the more that we think about it, the more we start to recognize that so many of our peers and so many people in, older generations were raised with this idea that you have to get the pat on the back. You have to get the award. You have to get the job you set out to get. And if you don't do those things, if you don't achieve those goals, then you're not really worth anything, right? Like that you are the failure, as Tova has, told us over and over again. You are not actually the failure. You just have failed at doing something. But I think a lot of us were raised to think the opposite of that, that you actually are the failure,
Yeah.
that not achieving that goal means that you yourself are the failure. And I think that's really culturally ingrained in certain generations. I don't find it as much in some of the younger generations that I speak to now, but certainly in my parents' generation and in their parents' generation, it was very much about, you get the certain car, you get the certain job, you have the 2.5 kids, you have a certain house in a certain neighborhood, you have certain friends, you go to certain clubs, you join a certain membership, right? Like these are the kinds of things that you have to check off your list in order to be acceptable and accepted into whatever membership in society that you're trying to gain. And those things really impact how you feel about yourself if you don't have that innate sense of self-worth. And all of that combined can be fundamentally rocked if you decide to take a different pathway. If suddenly you wake up
Yeah.
one day and you're like, oh, wait a minute, I checked all these boxes and I'm really unhappy. Like I'm still not happy, and
Yeah.
you could wind up like I did at some point and go, I'm really not happy. And I'm worried that even if I make a different choice, that there's something just wrong with me and I'm not capable of being happy. right?
Well,
Like that there's something
yes.
fundamentally wrong on the inside that means I don't get to be happy ever. And so no matter what I do, I'll never be happy. And that's like that's sort of like the next level of like how do you deal with that experience? And I think that's the danger of this achievement culture mentality.
I think that is so um important what you're saying, because I think there's a few places that this achievement culture and this goals goal setting can fail us, right? And one is you set a goal and you don't get there. You don't get there, and you have attached your worth to that goal, right? Now you feel like a failure. If you don't have an underlying sense of self-worth, this could be problematic. The other one is what you're talking about, which is you do reach your goal and you're not happy. And you're like, like you don't even understand what's happened. And I think that honestly, that is a lot of what you and I do, right? Is helping out like what that means, right? And why that happens. Because you and I've recently sort of been playing around with this concept, and we're still playing around with it. So forgive my poor example, but like of this like pyramid that you're building, right? And if your goal is at the top of the pyramid, but the base of the pyramid is based on supposed to's and things that you should do and things that you're supposed to do, as opposed to you listening to what you truly want, you can get to the top of the pyramid and still be unhappy and still be discontent and still not be feeling the feeling of joy that you should feel when you get to the top of a pyramid. If it's not built on these building blocks of listening to your inner voice, of mindfulness, right? Like, and I think that is another problem of achievement culture. When you are just achieving things for the sake of achieving them, rather than for reaching goals because you truly want to reach those goals. And I mean, how many times has a friend told you that they're getting a degree in something, whether it's a master's or a certificate or whatever, and they don't seem like they actually want to be doing it? And you don't want to be rude and be like, why are you doing it? But you're also like, why are you doing it? And I read a line, and I don't know if I included it or not, but it had something to do with this concept of like going after credentials as if it was like a drug, being, oh, here we go, being addicted to the drug of credentialism. And I was like, oh, I hear that, right? Like this drive to just like, yeah, I want that goal. I want, you and I have talked about you used to run races
Mm-hmm.
for running, and it ruined running for you.
Yes.
And this is a perfect example of the difference between maybe like, I hate to use the words good and bad because it's so not
Right.
nuanced, but like good goal setting. I'm quoting, no one can see it unless you come over to our YouTube channel. Good goal setting and bad goal setting. I like when I ran, and hopefully I'll run again. Um, I like I like doing races because it gives me a goal, right? It means that like I like following a plan. I know like how often I'm running. It makes sure that I take rest days. It makes sure that I like spice things up and run different distances. Like I really like having races, and I just do a couple throughout the year. So it does that. It's great for me. It's good goals. You did not like running races as part of your running, and it kind of ruined running for you. And you are like just quite literally just getting back to running right now.
Yes. Yes, because it turned running into something competitive, which I wanted to run for the enjoyment of running. I didn't want to run to compete. I'm a competitive person by nature. I don't need help being competitive. I need help being less competitive. And so turning it into something competitive made it something where I became anxious and stressed and uptight and not the person I wanted to be, instead of a person who was just like connecting to nature and being out running on trails and enjoying the experience and using my body and feeling, that connection to myself and the earth and the world around me and my breathing and all those like healthy feelings. So I would call it like healthy goal setting versus unhealthy goal setting, right? Like the kind of goal setting that we encourage and we think is really healthy for all of us are the kinds of goals that connect you to who you are as a human and the things that you are passionate about and joyful about, the things that bring you that feeling where you're like, yes, this is what I want to be doing. And if that's not happening and you're just checking a box to check a box, then it's not a sensible goal. Now, there are goals that we all have to meet for various purposes, right? Like maybe we set a budget because we need to spend a certain amount of money because that's the amount of money we have to spend. And that might not bring you the most joy in life, but you can reframe that goal in a different way so that it does feel joyful, right? So there are ways we can set goals that feel better than others. So, we can look at goals and use them to our best possible what's the word I want? To our healthiest, most beneficial way, right? Yeah. We don't have to set them in such a way that they become punitive. That's not the point of a goal.
Well, and I think what's really important is the concept, and we've talked about this a lot, about being intentional with our goal setting, and the way it's described when I was reading about achievement culture is being intentional when you opt into achievement culture. So I think we're ready for our first break, and I'd like to take that break and then come back and talk a little bit about what we mean when we talk about achievement culture. And I'd actually like to, since so many of our conversations with our guests have started off a lot with like high school conversations, to talk a little bit about what happens with our kids and achievement culture in high school, because that affects us. And also, if any of us are parents, it actually affects whether you have kids or not, like all of society. So let's take a quick break and we will be right back. Know what I really love to do?
Take baths, go for walks, read, drink margaritas, hike.
Yeah, not what I was referring to. We're recording a commercial right now.
I do, but I'm thinking outside the box, being adaptable.
As I was saying, what I love to do is host our live monthly workshops.
Oh, right. That's what we were talking about. Me too. They are a lot of fun to put together and host every month. And we can bring margaritas, so...
Join us for live conversation as we get a bit deeper into topics near and dear to our hearts. We go through everything from self-care to setting boundaries.
We share coaching tips, practical advice, and take questions from the audience. It's a whole lot of fun.
Sign up for our newsletter today at goboldlyinitiative.com/contact to make sure you hear about all the upcoming Go Boldly workshops.
You definitely don't want to miss out. Now, back to that show.
Okay, so welcome back. I did not find a lot on the disadvantages of goal setting, but I did find a lot on the disadvantages of achievement culture, especially when it came to schools. And so a brief definition of achievement culture is just one where people work hard to achieve goals. And then it goes on to say, and better the group as a whole. That is a positive spin on achievement culture. But a school that is built on achievement culture would have many students bearing the hallmarks of success, right? Great, good grades, a lot of extracurricular involvement. It also, though, can be a school where there's high incidence of depression and anxiety. Oftentimes, these are considered, schools with a lot of high achievers. One thing I found interesting was an article said, while most parents believe that setting their kids up for a successful life means sending them off to a good school, either grade school, high school, or then getting them ready to go to a good college. In 2019, the National Academy of Sciences designated kids at high achieving US high schools as an at risk group for mental health problems, which I thought is incredibly accurate and just totally wild.
Yeah.
They said, I mean, accurate, but just
Yes.
whoa. So they said not only do high achievement school cultures drive kids to mental health problems, they also kill their love of learning, which is sort of should be the point of high school,
Of any school,
any
right?
school.
That's the point of education, is to instill a
Right.
love of learning, not to destroy the love of learning. It's the
Right. 100%. And the problem with these achievement pressure is it is so focused on outcomes. And we've heard these with our guests, right? You're focused on the grades, you're focused on the awards, you're focused on getting into the good colleges. And as someone who got good grades, got awards, and got into the good colleges, I can say with 100% certainty, I only learned enough to get the grades, get the awards, and get into the colleges. I didn't actually like learn. Now there were teachers, my math teacher, who also happens to be my stepdad, is one of them, who did encourage actual learning, but a lot of the education was focused on just getting the grades. And
right.
so if you could, you'd figure out how to get the grades. It had very little to do with actually learning how to learn, learning about the process of learning, learning how to deal with mistakes and failures, because you didn't want to have any mistakes and failures because you were so incentivized to hit those specific outcomes.
Right. And teaching to the test and teaching kids how to take a test. And I mean, while those are necessary skills, I don't view them as life skills, right? They're not, these aren't teaching our kids how to function in society. They're not teaching our kids how to invent the next great machine or invention or life-saving treatment. These are teaching our kids how to take a test. And so if we want to create a generation of innovators and thought leaders and empathetic leadership, then we need to rethink the way in which we are incentivizing kids to learn and to be engaged in the thought process, right? To engage in
Well,
thinking. And I personally can't remember enjoying a class in high school, like ever. I had some great teachers, but there was no engagement in the material, right? There was no like, this is fascinating and I want to learn more about it. I think I liked a psychology class, and I probably liked some literature classes because I like books so much, not necessarily because I liked my teachers. Um, but, you know, once I got to college and I learned that there are people who will teach you, and they will teach you by like engaging you in the material, and
right.
you can really invest yourself in the knowledge. That was mind blowing to me. And I went to one of these high achievement schools. Like I went to a very high achieving high school. And you know, some of the kids that came out of that school are some of the highest achievers in this country now. And so to look at this kind of achievement pressure that we're putting on kids, it's insane. To ask kids to focus solely on the outcome of what they're producing and not to invest in the process of learning, not to invest in making mistakes, invest in having the wrong answer, in figuring out how to fail and fail fantastically, right? Like that's some of the best learning that you can do. If only somebody had taught me how to fail gracefully at some point in my life, I would have been a much happier adult.
Well, I even, I look at the books that our kids have now, and I hope that they learn from them. And I look at it Rosie Revere Engineer is one of my favorite kids books. And like I tear up every time I read it. I'm gonna tear up just talking about it. But like when she, like she wants to create a flying machine
Right.
and it doesn't fly the first time. And her like great aunt is like, that was a great first try. And she's like,
Right.
but it didn't fly. And she's like, but it was a great first try. Like, I can't imagine a teacher saying that to a kid. I can at my kids' schools now. I do think that that's something because um, they have growth mindset posters all plastered all over the school. But I think particularly for a lot of kids, growing up pretty much before 2015 maybe or 2010, and yet there are still super high achieving. I mean, I also know that our school, the high school that I'm in, keeps trying to rate, get higher ranked, and the way they do that is they just add more AP classes.
Right.
Like, I don't think that's actually making our school a better school. That's just making us ranked higher.
Right.
And a lot of articles I read talked about that. One thing I thought that was interesting was one of the articles talked about the comparison between people striving for these A's, right, in these grades, in a way almost like in a materialistic nature, like collecting handbags and cars. And it reminded me of the conversation that we had way back at the beginning of the season of busyness replacing this concept of like materialism, of like, I have the newest
Yeah.
car. And it sort of made me think about like, well, it makes sense that once this high achieving generation could no longer get the A's because they don't exist in the real world for you to get an A, we replaced it with busyness. We replaced it with, look how busy I am. Look at all the organizations I'm part of. Look at all the extracurricular activities I have. I'm running this. I'm doing this. Aren't I, give me that attaboy kind of thing, or attagirl.
Yep.
And it speaks very true to me, at least, that we are still trying to collect those pats on the back, those cars and handbags and materialistic
Yeah,
things.
there's that, and then I think there's a lot of, and perhaps this is not this episode, but there are a lot of parents doing that through their children as well.
Yeah.
Collecting those pats on the back via their kids' grades or their kids' sports, achievements or their kids' success. And it's unfortunate in the sense that you don't need those things in order to be worthwhile. You just don't. And getting that feeling fulfilled is something that you can do without having to get the trophy or the medal or the ribbon or whatever. But it's the harder pathway to take, and it requires seeking help usually, or asking somebody, how do I get there? What do I do? And
Well,
that's the harder road to travel.
the other problem of achievement culture, of many problems, and of all of this, is that you are not in charge of who gives out the trophy
Right.
and who gives out the medal
Yep.
and who gives out the grade and the perspective that they're coming from and what they're looking for and all of those things that you have absolutely no control over. And we've talked about it in previous seasons, how little in our lives we actually have control over. But if you are relying on others for validation, and if your self-worth is relying on these things from the outside world, um, even getting into college, right? Because there's a certain number of slots and there's only so many people. And if they're only going to take so many kids from your school, and there happens to be, they're taking 3 kids from your school, and there's 3 kids from your school who have parents who went to that college, well, I'm sorry, you're not getting into that college. And it
Right.
has literally nothing to do with you. Like, not a smidge, not a hair. Those are my 2 words of the episode. um, not anything to do with you. And so if you are relying on getting into certain college to validate you, then that's problematic. And that is the problem with a lot of achievement culture, in addition to the depression and anxiety and all of these other things, is that so much of it is out of your control.
Right.
Um, and that is a slightly different focus than of these, that intentionality of goal setting. But I think it is an important conversation to have when we think about why are we so bent on setting goals. Because like I said at this outset, we love goal setting, and goal setting can be so important in giving your life focus and purpose and help you set habits and help you just reach so many things that you want to do in your life. But you have to know why you're doing them. And I thought some of the conversation, some of the writing around achievement culture, if we are willing to accept that that's where we live, we exist in a world that is this, is that we have to be willing to opt into it when we want to and opt out of it when we want to, which means we have to say no a lot.
Yeah.
And we have to be willing to say no a lot.
Right. And we know from talking to, a variety of people that is hard, that's hard for people to do, to say no to things that, might get them a pat on the back, that might make them feel good about themselves, even if it's not something they really feel like doing or have any passion for at all. It's hard to, it's hard for us as people who are immersed in this world to say no to opportunities that come to us when we know they're not right for us, but it might feel good to be recognized in some way. Those are hard things to do, but they are healthy things. So it's something to keep in mind whenever you're thinking about setting a goal or thinking about taking on something new, thinking about your life path, the way, and maybe when I say things like that, you may not sit in your, morning chair drinking your coffee and go, what's my life path today? Right? People don't do that. You're probably sitting there going, what is on my schedule for today?
What do I have to feed my kids for lunch today?
Do I have anything to put in their lunchbox? Why can't I just buy pizza? I recognize that that's probably not the language you're using. So just think about it from the perspective of, if you're sitting down having your cup of coffee going, okay, what's on my plan for today? Does it does it feel like me? Does it feel like what I want to be doing? And if it does, super. If it doesn't, then maybe think about, is it the path that you're meant to be traveling? And we can't answer that for you via the podcast, but you can certainly schedule an appointment with us and we can talk to you about it. But back to the point at hand, this concept of achievement culture really can start to wear you down, and you can start to feel like, oh, I've got to be perfect all the time. I've got to, if I'm not getting the ribbons, if I'm not getting, you can tell I've been doing a lot of swimming lately. If I'm not getting the medals, if I'm not getting the perfect A's, then, I'm nothing, right? Like, it can go from this sort of like nagging thing to all or nothing very quickly for people. And I've seen it in lots of friends. I've seen it in lots of people I've talked to. And it becomes, I think it can become really overwhelming for people and turn into this, this sort of dire situation where you find yourself anxious, you find yourself depressed, you find yourself constantly trying to be something you're not in order to prove that you can do whatever it is you set out to do. And, I think we're afraid to stop, right? We're afraid to the dreaded quit word, right? We're afraid to be quitters. But it's not quitting when you walk away from something that's unhealthy for you, right? Like, that's not quitting.
Well, yeah. And so I want to talk about that for a second, but I want to take a break. So we're going to take a quick break, and I want to say something about quitting, because I think I think it's going to be my new word. It's going to be my new fail. I'm going to embrace quitting.
I'm excited.
So let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Okay. In case you didn't already know, we love talking.
True story. More than simply talking, we love researching, prepping, and bringing this podcast to life.
We launched We Go Boldly with the goal of reaching people dealing with the kinds of questions and concerns that we also face.
Things like how to hear my inner voice, how to make sure my habits are worth it and stick, how do I feel my feelings and still manage to function.
After years of personal work and lots of trial and error, we realized we have a lot to share on these topics.
Now we've been broadcasting for over a year and we are proud of our podcast.
And to no one's surprise, we still have a lot to say and talk about.
We sure do. We need your help to keep going. Every episode takes time and money to create, and we would love your support.
So, if you like what we are doing, please support us by joining our Patreon community and becoming a monthly subscriber.
Join our Patreon community today at patreon.com/wegoboldly. We are so grateful to all of our supporters. Now, back to the show. Okay, welcome back. I want to talk about quitting.
I want to clap. I don't know why.
Yay, quitting. So two things. Before we get to quitting, I'm going to build the suspense. So 100% to what you were saying. And I think about all of these people who loved swimming in high school. They loved swimming. And then as soon as they were done competing, they never did it again. Or they loved playing soccer, or they loved running, or whatever it was. And as soon as they were done with the competing part of it, they never did it again. And is it because they were burnt out from it? Or is it because they so associated it with the competition that they just didn't see the point of doing it anymore? And either way, it's just really, really sad. Because if you love swimming, then you probably love doing it, even if there isn't a person at the end of the lane yelling at you to go faster. I mean, maybe you'll even like it more. I don't know. Maybe you won't. It's hard to say. I know some people would only like it if somebody's yelling at you at the end of the lane, but you might actually like it more. And so I just look at all these high school athletes. I was just having a conversation with my dad about this, people who do travel and club, and you're like, boom, boom, boom. And it's even only a small percentage of them are going to go to college and play it. And then they go to college and most of them don't play any sports in college. And you're like, but do they do intramural? No, not really. And you're like, well, what happened? Don't you still love soccer? Don't you still want to kick the ball around a little bit? I don't know. But getting onto my quitting thing, I think we should embrace quitting so much more than we do, because I think it would let us start things. And I mentioned this on another episode, which I'm not totally sure if it's going to air before or after this one. It's all in a mix and I'm totally confused. But I have recently looked into, there are women in my town that have started playing pickleball, women our age. I mean, there have been women in my town that are 40 years older than me playing pickleball for quite a long time, but there are women that are our age playing pickleball. And I want to do it because I think it sounds wacky and fun. And I made a cake yesterday called Wacky Cake, and I want to play pickleball because it sounds like a wacky sport. So I want to do it. I think it sounds fun. But the only way I'm going to be willing to do it is if I'm also willing to quit. Because what if I don't like it? What if it's not fun? What if it takes too much time? What if I just don't want to do it anymore? And the only way I'm willing to try new things, right, is if I'm willing to quit them. And it's one of the things that the freedom of doing my new thing of the month allows me to do, because there's really only expectation, the only expectation is that I do it one time, right? So that's kind of where oh, I'll do it, one time. Cool. And so that's my new thing of the month thing. But I think we should embrace quitting things more. I think it's okay for you to knit for a phase of your life and then never do it again and never come back to it and give your yarn to somebody else. I think that we should be allowed to do things without goals attached to them and just do them because we want to do them. I also think we should be able to have a goal of I want to learn how to knit a scarf. And then we knit that scarf, and then we're like, it is a horrible scarf. I'm not giving it to anybody. And I'm never doing, like, I hand knit a blanket. It's in my living room. I was like, I'm going to hand knit this blanket. Then I'm going to hand knit all my friends and family Christmas, like blankets for Christmas. Y'all are not getting blankets for Christmas. It is a hot mess. And I might try one more because my youngest son wants me to make him one. I do not know why. This thing has holes in it. My oldest one lays on the couch and puts his leg through the blanket. That is how large the hole is. It is so horrible, this blanket that I created. Rielly, you are not getting one for Christmas. I am
I'm
sorry.
devastated. I'm gonna
It
be honest
is
with you.
so bad. Um, but I tried. Seems cool. Not probably not going to happen again. But I just think we should be way more willing to just do things, because why not?
And I think it's so. I didn't really think we would go in this direction, and I hadn't made this connection, and which is super exciting to me that we have, and now I have made this connection. But achievement culture blocks us from trying new things, and it blocks
Yes.
us from being open to change and from being open to experiencing the fullness of life, the opportunities around us. Because if you're so focused on following the the laid out plan in front of you that you may not even be, enjoying, you might just be checking the boxes because that's what's going to get you the trophy and the applause, that you don't notice all around you all these opportunities that you would otherwise really love, that you would otherwise thrive in, that would bring you joy and excitement and other open doors, right? If you're just focused on that pathway that that you were told you were supposed to follow, or that something in you has made you feel like you need to follow, whatever it is, because there's any number of reasons that you're doing this to yourself and you've made these choices, then you're not, you've got blinders on and you're not seeing what's around you and all the potential around you. And that is truly unfortunate, because then what we were saying earlier about what happens with kids, then all these kids could be, the next, could be creating the next cure for cancer. They could be creating, who knows what they could be inventing, right? If they
Yeah.
were given the opportunity to be creative and to think outside the box and to not be shoved into the line of like, I'm going to take this standardized test and I'm going to pass it. And then I'm going to take this standardized test and I'm going to pass it. If we could think outside of that line of what everyone else was doing and all the time having to meet those expectations, and that feels so heavy and ugh.
Well, that goes to sort of something that you and I talk about, and this gets a little like into the woo and the universe and all of that. But
My
like,
favorite place.
um, what are it makes me think of that new picture of the universe that we just found, that they no, we just didn't like stumble upon it and found it. They created this like amazing telescope that allowed it to see it. It was like we just like stumbled on it.
Tripped and
We're
found it.
like, oh look,
I
there's
like
a new
it.
picture of the universe. But like what we could imagine the universe was and what the universe actually was like, I mean, so different. The
Right.
universe was so much more amazing than we could ever possibly imagine. And so sometimes I think that's the same as like the goals we set for ourselves. Like, I'm not talking about running a 5K, I'm talking about like these larger life goals.
Yeah.
But like we set these goals for ourselves. Rielly and I set goals for our business. And sometimes we have to be like, we're going to turn this over to the universe a little bit, because I bet the universe has plans for us that are different. Maybe bigger, maybe smaller, maybe different, maybe better. Like who knows, but they're different. And that's kind of like the universe with that image that the telescope pulled. It was like, oh yeah, you thought that's what was happening, but no, sorry, it's like bending on itself,
Right.
because there are these massive galaxies that are so old. Like that's what it was, 14 billion. Oh, you thought it was only a couple billion years old. It's like 14 billion years old. Like cool, you were totally wrong. Like like we just don't know enough sometimes to be a good decision maker about even our own lives.
Yeah.
And
That's the key, what you just said. We don't know enough, right? Like sometimes people are maybe not going to like this statement. Sometimes you have to just have faith, right?
Well, and I will add, if we, the individuals who Rielly and I tell you every single time we talk to you to listen to your inner voice. So if we are saying that sometimes you don't even know enough, you can bet society and somebody else definitely doesn't know enough. So if it's like the hierarchy of who knows enough, other people are like underneath the gum on your shoe. Is that too harsh?
That might be a little rough. Sorry,
Okay.
I just cackled. I cackled on our podcast. You got me.
Yes. Success.
I know.
And then like you are like solidly there. You're like in an acceptable place of knowing about who you are, but then like there could be, you know, faith and someone else. And I'm not saying that like listen, I go to friends who I trust immensely for advice. So I'm not
Yes.
saying that they're underneath the gum on my shoe.
Right.
But I'm just saying like society as a whole who like has like opinions about things, the people who are shooting you and suppose like you're supposed to do that, that's what I'm saying.
The cultural expectations, the stereotypes.
Not the dear people in your life that you go to for advice and kindness.
Yes.
Even if it's tough kindness, because you should have those people in your life too,
for sure.
But so I think this is definitely taken a turn, but I think that, you know, the takeaway of all of this is that it is important for us when we set goals to remember that we don't want to just set goals because we think we should. And then we also don't want to only do things because they have to do with some goal, right? We want to let ourselves just to do things because why not?
It's okay to do something purely for the enjoyment of doing it, right?
Yeah. Or even just to see if you might enjoy it, right? Like that's another reason to do something. I don't know if I would like this. Like, I don't know if I will like, you know, pickleball.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't even really understand what it is, so I'm excited to hear about it.
You know what I'm excited about? The noise that the ball will make when it hits the paddle.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's going to be like a thwap.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how often I'm going to hit it.
I don't know either, but I'm excited.
Like the wild card of it all.
Right. Could
but
go
like,
anyway.
I feel like that could be a really satisfying noise.
I agree. I'm excited.
Yeah. So,
I want to know.
That's kind of, I think that's a reason to try it out.
Why not?
I think we are at homework.
Yeah, we're going to have to go to homework so we don't make a super long episode for you all to get through.
So I'll be honest, I did not have homework before we started this episode, but I've made up some homework.
Excellent.
And I think you're going to like it. So I would like you, dear listener, to look at your 5-year plan if you have one, or pick a goal. If, you know, if you're listening to the podcast, in all likelihood, you have some goals. Why are those your goals? Ask yourself this, bust out your journal, have a conversation with yourself. Why are those your goals? Why is that your plan? Does it fit with who you are? Does it connect with your authentic self? If you've done our Defining You mission statement course, if you haven't, why not? But also if you've done it, does it align with your personal mission statement? And lastly, if you're saying no to those things, are you simply checking boxes? I don't mean, are you checking boxes like, I want to be a lawyer, so I have to take the LSAT, go to law school, pass the bar. Obviously, there are certain boxes that need to be checked on your way to achieving goals, as long as you want to be a lawyer because it fits with your authentic self, right? That's just make sure we're clear with the checking of the boxes. And then the other one, I think this is going to be a fun goal. I want you to do something because you want to do it with no goal in mind. Like try out pickleball or go for a run or something non-athletic. Whatever it might be. Like you've wanted to try something for a long time, but it just didn't fit in your 5-year plan, so you've never done it. Try it out. We are always telling you to do new things. Maybe this isn't a new thing. Maybe this is an old thing that you love to do. Maybe you like coloring. Maybe you like cutting. I find cutting paper to be incredibly satisfying. Like maybe, I don't know what it is. maybe like scrapbooking.
Do that. There's poetry readings. I know,
Yeah,
like
poetry writing.
go to a new, go to an author event. Try a new thing.
Yeah.
See what you think.
Yeah.
And once you do, take a picture of yourself there.
Yes.
Share it with us on Instagram or Twitter or any of the socials. Tag us so we can see you.
Yeah. So we will be back next week with a guest. We will be excited. And thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.